a unique opportunity for anime and manga fans. If you're a One Piece fan, I'm sure you'd love to draw your favorite characters. Now you can get 2 amazing books for free. The first book will teach you drawing techniques, and the second one will show you how to create art directly on your phone without even needing to draw. You'll be able to create stunning virtual artwork just like the one on your screen right now. Both books are completely free if you act fast and click the link in the description. Don't waste time. This is a one-of-a-kind opportunity. Hey there, pirates! Welcome aboard the Anime No Mi channel. Mihawk has an incredible sword, Yoru, the first supreme grade sword we've encountered, but he didn't always possess this legendary weapon. Today, we'll talk about Mihawk's former sword and how he obtained Yoru. I hope for your support to help our crew win, and to do so, you just need to click the thumbs up button, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. By doing this, you will win an incredible devil fruit, so just comment which fruit you want. Guys, imagining how Mihawk acquired his legendary sword Yoru, his past, and how he became the greatest swordsman in the world is a fascinating exercise in trying to understand one of the most mysterious characters in One Piece. Since his first appearance in Chapter 50, Mihawk has exuded an air of invincibility, accompanied by an imposing presence that justifies the title of greatest swordsman. But how did he reach this level? And what might have shaped his journey to Yoru and his reputation? I believe that to understand Mihawk's origin, we need to consider the golden age of pirates, a period of chaos and opportunities where only the strongest survived and thrived. Perhaps Mihawk began as a young prodigy, someone who, from an early age, displayed a natural skill with swords. Maybe he came from an isolated island where survival depended on strength and skill. Perhaps he grew up in an environment where he had to fight constantly to protect something or someone. This scenario would have shaped him into a fierce and determined combatant. As for his first sword, I don't think it was anything extraordinary. It was probably an ordinary blade, but it gained meaning because it was the weapon that accompanied him during the early steps of his journey. In Chapter 50, when Zoro faces Mihawk uses a small dagger to block Zoro's strikes, which shows his absolute confidence in his abilities. Perhaps this reflects how he started, trusting more in himself than in the weapon he wielded. The transition from a common blade to Yoru, the powerful black sword, must have been a pivotal moment in his journey. I believe Mihawk obtained Yoru in a legendary duel, perhaps facing another renowned swordsman or acquiring it as part of a dangerous journey. Yoru is not just a blade. It is a Saijo o Wazamono, one of the 12 supreme grade swords, and carries a historical weight that connects it directly to the greatest swordsman who ever existed. This means that obtaining it must have been a milestone that solidified Mihawk's position as a true monster in the world of fencing. Perhaps the story of Yoru is tied to a specific place, like a legendary island known for forging the world's greatest swords. In Chapter 818, we learn more about legendary blades and their importance, which leads me to think that Yoru may have been forged in a place like that. Maybe Mihawk faced unimaginable trials to obtain it, going through tests that challenged not only his skill, but also his determination and spirit. However, obtaining Yoru may not have been enough for Mihawk to become the greatest swordsman in the world. I think he must have embarked on a journey to test his strength against the most skilled swordsman of his time. In Chapter 52, he mentions that he lives to seek strong opponents, suggesting that his rise was built upon a series of duels that pushed him to his limits. Perhaps he faced legendary figures, some of whom have already been mentioned in the world of One Piece, while others remain unknown. A fascinating part of Mihawk's journey may be his connection with Shanks. In Chapter 434, we discover that the two have a history of epic duels, which left a mark on the world. These battles were probably crucial for Mihawk to refine his skills and solidify his reputation. Perhaps he saw Shanks as a worthy rival, someone who challenged him to be better, even if their goals were different. When Shanks loses his arm, however, Mihawk makes it clear that he is no longer interested in facing him, indicating that he seeks only genuine challenges. Another important aspect is the title of greatest swordsman in the world. I think this title isn't something Mihawk actively sought, but rather something that was bestowed upon him as recognition of his unmatched strength. Perhaps he defeated the previous holder of this title in a duel that went down in history, something that must have happened before the events of Chapter 50. That moment may have been the peak of his journey, but also the start of a new phase, where he became the standard by which all other swordsmen would be measured. Mihawk's personality is also something that deserves attention. He values strength and skill above all else, but also shows respect for those with potential. In Chapter 52, he acknowledges Zoro's spirit and encourages him to keep training. suggesting that he understands the value of a healthy rivalry. Perhaps this reflects his own journey, where he found adversaries who inspired him to continue evolving. I think Mihawk's isolation also reflects his position as the greatest swordsman in the world. He lives on Kuraigana, a desolate island that seems to symbolize his solitude. Perhaps he chose this place to distance himself from the world, but also to train in peace and prepare for the challenges that may arise. However, his interaction with Perona during the time skip shows that he's not completely insensitive, which adds layers to his character. In chapter 957, we also see more about the Shichibukai system and how Mihawk was part of it. Perhaps he accepted this role not out of interest, but to avoid being constantly hunted by Marines and other swordsmen who wish to challenge his title. This makes me think that even as the greatest, Mihawk still has to deal with the consequences of his fame, something that can be both a burden and an honor. When we think of Mihawk, his imposing and serene figure shrouded in mystery, it's inevitable to consider the weight of the title he carries, the greatest swordsman in the world. But how did he reach such a position? It's a question that resonates since his first appearance in One Piece in chapter 50. The journey to this title couldn't have been easy, and over time, some clues and relationships highlight the factors that shaped his destiny. One essential point to understand his rise is his connection with Shanks. In chapter 434, Mihawk mentions the legendary duels he had with the Redhead. These battles, mentioned in a respectful tone, suggest that Shanks was perhaps the only adversary capable of confronting Mihawk on equal terms. I imagine these duels weren't just demonstrations of strength, but moments when both sought to overcome their own limits. Perhaps Shanks, with his free-spirited nature and boldness, was the perfect counterpoint to Mihawk, who is methodical and disciplined. However, this rivalry drastically changed when Shanks lost his arm. He sacrificed his own safety to save Luffy, an act that speaks volumes about his values, but also marked the end of the duels with Mihawk. This is confirmed in the same chapter 434, when Mihawk expresses disinterest in facing a Shanks who is no longer at his full strength. This event may have marked a turning point in Mihawk's journey. Without Shanks, the path to solidifying his position as the greatest swordsman became clearer. Although this doesn't mean he didn't face other formidable opponents, it's possible that the absence of such a challenging rival contributed to his apparent solitude at the top. Another interesting aspect is how Mihawk views his title. He doesn't seem to exhibit pride or vanity in being the greatest swordsman in the world. On the contrary, there's a certain emptiness in his pursuit. Perhaps he realized that the real challenge doesn't lie in defeating others, but in continuing to improve, even without rivals of equal strength. This is reflected in his relationship with Zoro. In chapter 52, Mihawk recognizes Zoro's potential and upon defeating him, challenges him to become stronger. I think this scene reflects his own experience. Perhaps he sees in Zoro the chance to have a worthy adversary in the future, something he himself sought throughout his life. Now, regarding Zoro's future and the question of inheriting Yoru, I believe it's a fascinating point to explore. Yoru is not just a weapon. It is a symbol of Mihawk's status and the legacy of all swordsmen who aspire to greatness. For Zoro, receiving Yoru would be more than just a recognition of his skill. It would be a validation that he has reached the top. However, I don't think Mihawk would simply hand over Yoru. Perhaps he wants Zoro to surpass him in a duel, something that demonstrates that the student has finally surpassed the master. This possibility echoes Mihawk's own journey, where he likely had to prove his worth to earn his current position. Another interesting point to consider is how Mihawk would deal with the idea of passing on his legacy. In chapter 957, we see Mihawk as part of the Shichibukai system, a position he seemingly accepted for convenience, avoiding being constantly hunted. This demonstrates a pragmatic side of his personality, but it may also suggest that he has no excessive attachment to power or fame. Therefore, he may see in Zoro not just a successor, but an opportunity to close a cycle. Perhaps Mihawk believes that every great swordsman must eventually pass the torch to the next generation. However, there's also the matter of Yoru itself. As one of the Saijo Owazamono, it's a blade that seems to demand something special from its wielder. In chapter 818, we learn about legendary swords and their importance in the One Piece universe. I believe Yoru is more than just a weapon. It is a test of the character and strength of those who wield it. For Zoro, wielding Yoru would not just be a physical achievement, but also an emotional and philosophical milestone. He would need to prove that he not only can defeat Mihawk, but that he also understands the weight of the legacy that this sword carries. It's also interesting to reflect on how Mihawk views his own future. He is a character who always seems to be looking toward the horizon, perhaps searching for something that even he can't define. I think his relationship with Zoro could be a way to find renewed purpose, a chance to leave behind something more than his reputation. So, while Zoro continues his journey to become the greatest swordsman, Mihawk may be living his own internal journey, one that prepares him to pass on everything he's built. Mihawk's story still holds many secrets, but the clues we have suggest a rich and complex narrative, where each choice and duel shaped a man who, even at the top, is still searching for something more. Perhaps that's what makes him so fascinating. The idea that even being the greatest, he remains human with all his quests and uncertainty. That was today's content. We hope you liked it and want to share your opinion on the subject. Don't forget to share the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care and stay amazing.